There we go. Okay. Yay. So I'm Kara Macri at Historic Albany, and I'm the person who's kind of managing the restoration of the Van Ostrande-Radliff House, or 48 Hudson. I don't know if the people signed in tonight have been in. We've been having a lot of people in with our tours now that we've started back up for the season or previously. So you'll be able to see that we are well underway to restoring the oldest building in the city, which is quite exciting. As all of you here tonight know, we're using tax credits as a part of our funding for the project, which is not always the most straightforward and intuitive process. So tonight is to really answer the questions that you all have, some of which were submitted, others can be asked tonight, to get the answers that you need to know whether or not investing in this project is something that's right for you. So what we'll do is you're welcome to unmute yourself, ask your question. You can raise your hand if you like, whichever. We have a small enough audience tonight that I don't think we'll have an issue of who gets to speak first. So whoever has questions, if you'd like to start, by all means. And if not, I have some ready to go. No takers for starting? Okay. Gentlemen, one of the questions that came in over email was asking if someone could take either just the state or the federal credit, or if they could shift the split so it's not half state credit, half federal, and do more one versus the other, since they have kind of an uneven tax structure that they pay.
Unfortunately not. The way that the New York tax law is set up, the state historic tax credit has to follow the federal rehabilitation credits, right? So those allocations have to be made identically by the partnership. So unfortunately, you can't take more federal credit than state credit. I guess at a high level, it's worth noting the state credit is refundable. So to the extent that you have more New York State tax credits than New York State tax liability, you'll receive a refund from the state in the amount of the excess credits that you have for that tax year. And then on the federal side, it's important to note that the credit is taken ratably over a 5-year period. So, the total amount of federal credits, you'll get 20% of that amount each year for the 5-year period following, starting with placement in service, and then the ensuing 4 years as well.
Thank you. One of the other questions that we had is when do you pay into the tax credit? They want to know, is it more of a pledge, you're invoiced later? Is everything put up front? Is there a schedule so you can pay in multiple installments?
Yeah, so the way it works in this instance is that you are going to, when you make your investment commitment, you will make a payment promptly to the escrow provider. So all of the funds are being held in escrow as a requirement of the crowdfunding offering. So there's a third party escrow provider called North Capital Private Securities. They will hold all of the funds until either the minimum goal is met or the offering expires. At which point, if there's excess above the minimum, those funds will be distributed to the issuer, to the partnership. And if the minimum is not met, then those funds would be returned to the investors absent an amendment to extend the time period. If there is an amendment, every investor will have 5 days to reconfirm their investment commitment.
Thank you. Someone had a question, pardon me, about the common owner portal where it asks for your adjusted income. Someone wanted to know, is this your income before taxes have been taken out, or if you itemize, how is that included in your income for the portal portion?
This is the gross income.
Yes.
So this is going to be top line income before taxes and deductions.
Thank you. Let me see. Eric, Christina, do either one of you have any questions you'd like to ask before I keep going on my list?
No, I'm good. I'm pretty comfortable with this. I just kind of showed up to see if people ask questions I hadn't thought about yet. Because this is my first time doing something like this, but I'm frankly having to cash out a number of investments to pay for rehabbing a house that parts of it vary between 200 and modern, 200 years old. So yeah, I've got an ugly tax burden in 2024, and this looks like a good way to burn some of that down. Although it amuses me that we're using money being used to restore one house to buy tax credits by restoring another house.
Yeah, it's interesting how it all plays out with taxes. Christina, do you have any specific questions? Not to put you on the spot.
Where is the project at in terms of its start date? And where are you at in terms of the commitments for fundraising?
Excellent question. So we are under construction now. We will be completing the first floor exterior restoration this summer. We're going to be going out to bid toward the end of the spring for a lot of the internal work that'll be done over the winter. Unfortunately, due to some material supply issues, we did get off to a late start. We were hoping for a lot of the work to be done over the winter this year. So we're a few months behind. Right now, we're looking at a completion date of early 2025, which is next year. We had set ourselves, we hadn't thought about it when we had kind of set our date for when we were planning to be complete, which was the end of 2024, not thinking that, okay, if we had any delays, even the slightest delay would push us into the next fiscal year. So while we're not anticipating a massive delay by any means, it is 3 months past what we had initially assumed when we would be done. But right now it's looking like we'll come in pretty close to that initial date, slightly after, probably in early 25. So that's where we are construction wise. Actually, we just laid some footings today, which is super exciting for those who are into buildings, and it's now, going to be structurally stable. It was in decent shape before we finally took out a lot of the cables and shoring. So it's been really exciting to see a lot of the shoring and kind of temporary elements that were put in there come out. So we are moving at light speed, I think, for us for construction, and we're very happy with the progress that everything is making. Right now, we're hoping for kind of a big reveal on the front facade to happen in mid-June. So that'll be something we'll be promoting once my contractors are okay with me putting that date out there. Funding wise, we're at 2.5 million raised in grant funds to date. The tax credit was only about a third of our funding. So we have actually the majority of it in place now. As for the tax credit raise, that has been slower than we have hoped. Part of that has been because we had such, I think, a long offering period. And of course, with the project now finishing in 25, that delays when investors would begin to see that, since it'll be placed in service technically in the next fiscal year, which is 25 when it will be placed in service. Let me pull up my stats. Right now we have 32,500 committed. Our total raise that we do need to reach is sadly quite higher. It's 945, 750,000. So we do have a long way to go. Should we not hit our goal by May 6th, which is the anticipated closing date of this offering, we do plan to extend it. Right now, we're looking at how far would we need to extend it so that we can obviously raise what we need to raise through the tax credit.
Just to be clear, Kara, I think your minimum amount you need to raise is more like 250,000.
Yes, I'm sorry. The minimum is 250,000. So that is much more attainable. The maximum on the raise was the 945,000. Sorry.
And I guess just not to avoid getting too technical here, but the reason that the minimum is so much lower is because you know, the partnership can utilize some of the state credits, the refund from some of the state credits as a construction source itself, through the managing member entity. And so, you know, it's really just the federal credits that can't effectively be monetized by the partnership. So, you know, to the extent there's that kind of explains the bit of a delta there in terms of additional sources that would be available.
We are continuing to apply for other grant funding as well as a few new sources, albeit smaller, but still some other grant sources have actually been created over the last few years since we kind of began planning what would be the funding for this project. So we do anticipate there may be some additional grant funds. And as we're kind of going through this whole tax credit process, we're finding that for a lot of our audience, due to all kinds of different factors, different for everybody, they're more interested in making contributions toward the prior donations, which would go through Historic Albany, similar to grant funding. So unfortunately, while it's not a tax credit portion of the income and doesn't necessarily affect the raise per se, there is still income coming in. So the project will still be completed regardless, if that helps answer that question.
Thank you. I appreciate you having this meeting. And it sounds like a really good time to complete my application or, you know, make my contribution or whatever it's called. I explained to you that I found the application process a little nerve-wracking. So that's what's held me back. But I guess I should just work through it.
Jake, is technical assistance on the application something that common owner can do? Would you be able to kind of walk Christina and other individuals who have questions about the process or are facing challenges? Is that something you can help them?
Absolutely. Our team's happy to hop in with anyone who's having a difficulty navigating the portal or understanding kind of how it works, to help guide you through that process. All the documents that you'll be signing, and kind of the technical legal end of those documents. I can't provide assistance on that. I mean, you need to be able to make your own investment decisions based on your current financial situation. But as far as the functionality of the portal, and making sure that you can understand how to use it, get your profile set up, process your investment, happy to walk you through that.
Thank you.
We did have a question about the portal come in a little bit earlier, Jake, whether or not someone could do a, I guess a withdrawal directly from their bank account, if it wasn't a wire transfer, which I thought was the case, but I figured I would ask the expert instead of assume I knew the answer.
Yeah, so our portal set up, it can take ACH transfers, wire transfers, credit card payments, or you can actually write a check and have that sent in as well. So all four of those options can be handled through the portal. It's just going to be a selection that you make when you're getting ready to process the investment.
Excellent. And the portal's clear on where to send checks. I wanted to make sure that
Yes,
everyone
if you select the check option, then it will provide you the address and the details on where to make that out to. You won't see that unless you check this, select the check option though. So if you're looking around for it, make sure you have selected the check option. It doesn't lock you in. If you want to switch back to ACH, you can, but to have the address and information pop up, you'll need to select check at the investment level.
The other thing about doing a check too is investments still have to all go through the portal. That's one question that we've been getting is can people just send a check to Historic Albany to invest? And we've had a couple of those come into our office. But for your investment to be counted as an investment, you do have to make an account on the portal, log in, and then do your investment there. And then send a check directly to the escrow company using the address that's provided through the portal. Checks that are sent directly to Historic Albany can technically be considered a donation to the project, but they're not an investment, so you won't get tax credits if you send a check to Historic Albany directly.
Correct.
Okay, do either of you guys have any other questions you'd like to ask? I have a couple more. Let me see on my list. Actually, I think we may have covered them. It said, what happens if we don't hit our fundraising mark? And to clarify the goal, which Rich, you helped me with. That is, I think, all of the questions I had stockpiled.
I guess one question, I don't know if you can answer this or not, but I'll throw it out there. So being totally blunt, I'm an engineer, you know, I work for a living. And so with the federal credit, there's a lot of rules and regulations around what it can apply to or not when they talk about like a passive or non-passive income. Could these credits be applied to just normal income earned through just like on a normal 10 or what is it, normal W-2?
So generally not, right? So these are passive activity credits, and so it is something that kind of limits the pool of folks who can use them, right? To some extent. Now, there are some exceptions to that you can look into. For example, real estate professionals there's an exception there. It sounds like if you're an engineer, you're probably not an electing real estate professional.
Correct.
So that likely wouldn't apply. However, there's also what's called the deduction equivalent, right, of the credits. So you could potentially take the deduction equivalent of the credits each year. You can carry the credits forward for up to 20 years as well. So, you know, there are some strategies, but it really makes it difficult to, you know, the ability to utilize the federal credits in particular is very, you know, case by case basis, right? Essentially. So many people, you know, can absorb a small amount using the deduction equivalent, right? For example, but not everyone, right? Because then that phases out over a certain income level. So it really, you know, is something best discussed with your accountant or tax professional.
Perfect. That still points you in the right direction. Thank you, Rich.
Yep.
We had someone just join us. I think we've gone through a lot of the questions that we had kind of stockpiled. Anyone who's joined recently, if you have questions you'd like to ask, now is the time. Nope, nothing. For those who did just join in, we have recorded this evening. So all of the questions that have been asked have been recorded, and we'll post it either on the portal investment page, or at the very least, the questions we put in the question and answer section on the common owner page. That's the one thing that I have not shared tonight. We talk about common owner and how everything has to go through the portal, but I have neglected to share the link for our investment project. You can find it everywhere on our website, whether it's Historic Albany's homepage or 48 Hudson page or all over Facebook. But the page you need to go to do your investment, if indeed you are going to do so, is commonodor.com/project/48-Hudson. And then we will share that. Thank you. Yes, that way you can access that. Thank you, Jake. So that's the link right there, the common owner page that everything needs to go through. All right, are there any other questions this evening that we have not yet answered? You can type them in the chat if you'd rather not unmute your microphone. All right, well, if there are no other questions, I think that's it for the evening. We'll be very quick apparently tonight. But if there are any other questions that do pop up as you're going through this process, or things that you think of, please feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to answer them. And if I do not have the answers, obviously I have these gentlemen here who I can email, and they will absolutely be able to answer your questions. Let me put my email in the chat. So any questions that come up later on can be sent to my email, cmacri@historic-albany.org. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight. And hopefully I'll see some of you on tours at 48 Hudson or around. So thank you again, and have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, Kara.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Good night.